My name is Andy White. I will be your host today. This morning's discussion will be centered around the configuration of ACD, EAC, and AOC with actual calls to the queues. So this is the second technical webinar we're doing this month. Hopefully you joined us last week. If not, we'll have a video of that posted here soon with the basic troubleshooting and problem reporting. And this week it's with regards to the configuring the call center functions on the QX. It's basically going to be a follow-up. There's already a webinar that's previously recorded. It's out there on the YouTube channel on how to configure ACD EAC. And this is going to be basically an update to that. So I'm going to probably go through a lot of this information kind of quick. Information that's covered in more detail on the other video or webinar. But I do want to present some of the updates that have been added to the EAC dashboard. We'll look at the new EAC queue panel and also configure the automatic outbound calling, which we did not do on the first webinar. So it's going to be quick through a lot of this information. And I do have a lot of information to cover. I can tell you it will last probably more than an hour. If you need to drop off, that'll be fine. We will get the video posted there at some point. All right, we're going to do a quick review of ACD, EAC, and AOC. We'll look at the QX licensing, configuring ACD queues and agents, along with EAC options with the new features. The automatic outbound calling, we're going to go over that and show how that's configured and look at the tools and follow up with any questions that you might have at the end. All right, what is Epygi's ACD solution for call centers? Is basically consists of the basic ACD function consists of two licensable features, and that's the AC automatic call distribution and the Epygi ACD console. ACD allows to configure the queues, the agents, the supervisors directly on the QX for any inbound call center and manage the distribution of those inbound calls. Whereas EAC is an enhancement to the basic ACD offering with a basic tool for agents and supervisors to manage or monitor the call center activities. All right, so with the basic ACD license, it's just going to turn on the basic ACD queuing. Agents can log in, they can log out by doing a feature code from their phone. However, if the agents are going to need to be accountable for their time, where they're going to put themselves in different away states, away on break, away on training, things like that, those agents will need to be using the EAC tool, as well as the EAC tool brings about some management tools, supervisor tools. All right, it's based on the following building blocks, where the administrator can manage the entire software. The ACD queue, that's going to be configured where you can receive the incoming calls and distributes the calls to agents that are idle. Of course, you have the agents. They're going to be extensions on the PBX. And then you've got the supervisor that can oversee the call center and all of the queues. And then you've the auto tenant to bring in the calls and then distribute the calls to the right queues. And then reporting, which is brought about with the EAC tool. So you can receive the calls to the auto tenant. You can receive them direct DIDs to the queues. You can have them come into a receptionist where they can be transferred. The agent details, each agent can receive calls from queues, and they can make them receive direct calls to their own extension. They can work locally or be work from home users as a remote extension, or even receive calls onto their mobile phone. And they can be a member of several different call queues. So here's an example. You got calls coming in from the outside, either through the POTS lines or through the SIP trunks. Calls in, reach the auto tenant, with the interactive voice response, and then they could press, for example, 1 for sales, 2 for marketing, 3 for support, and then they're the calls are presented to the agents. Okay, here's an example of an incoming call. Customers call in, the agent's phones begin to ring. If the call might be rejected due to a queue overflow, if there's too many calls in the queue, the caller might get rejected. If the caller gets in the queue, they're going to wait where they can hear specialized greetings and even music on hold and things like that. The best case scenario is when the agent answers the call, of course, or the caller can hang up if the call that's an abandoned call, or the call is rejected after the queue timeout expires, and the caller could be redirected to another destination or extension. So the EAC is a web-based application, basically an enhancement to the basic ACD, as we've already mentioned. It does rely on ACD to work and allows agents, supervisors to monitor the queues and agents and see real-time statistics. The EAC console, it can display, manage the agent statuses, view queues and agent details, produce reports, can chat with other agents, supervisors, and track calls, enter wrap-up codes and comments. It's web-based and no need to install any app. And one of the other advantages of using ACD on the QX is that you don't require a separate server. Many ACD applications would require you to install a separate server, so that's a big cost savings there. All right, the supervisor can message and can be displayed to other agents. And then we have the automatic outbound calling, and this is something we're going to touch on a good bit today. The AOC allows to create, this is your outbound calling campaign. So you can import lists of phone numbers and contacts, and then when people answer, they can connect with the agents. Excuse me, let me just take a quick water break here. Apologize for the rough sounding voice today. Yesterday I was diagnosed with COVID, but I just had some minor symptoms, thank goodness. But anyway, struggling through it. I think we'll be okay. All right, the calls are placed on a high priority queue once they're answered, and the first valid agent becomes available. Agents can belong to inbound call center queues as well. All right, the target list is loaded into the AOC tool and can be modified directly on the tool. The QX will call the target list and place the called person in a high priority queue once the call is answered. And then the message can be played for them to hear while they're waiting to enter to the call to be answered right away. So it would be a short hold time. Once that call gets answered, they'll be at the front of the queue basically. More than one call campaign can be run with their own calling list. The system, they can attempt to call more than once if the call is not completed. And it is also there's an annual licensing. It's based on total simultaneous calls needed. And then it's reduced licensing for renewal fees after the first year. Okay, there's mainly two licenses, ACD for ACD, EAC, and then now the third one, I guess, for AOC. Okay, it's available on all QX models except the QX20. So ACD is just a basic license. It allows you to set up the queues and distribute the calls to agents. It's a one-time permanent license. And then you've got the EAC, which is a per seat based on the number of concurrent logins to the EAC application. So for example, if you have, let's say you have 20 agents, but maybe only 10 of them are active at any given point in time, then you would need licensing for the 10 agents, not all 20. All right, and so it does not affect the total number of agents logged on to ACD. It only affects the number of EAC. It doesn't affect the total number of agents that can log in to ACD. Let me rephrase that. Only the number of simultaneous logins, all right? And then there's an admin that can basically, and then the administrator, then you've got the agents and the supervisors. It's sold in quantities of 5, 10, or 20 for the simultaneous logins. This is with the EAC. It's annually renewable at the a discounted price there. All right, includes the ACD license. The basic ACD license is included with the EAC. And then there's a single EAC license to be used with basic ACD for supervisors to run reports, and this license is permanent and does not require renewal. Okay, so let's say if a customer is just using the basic ACD, they don't need all the fancy bells and whistles of EAC for their agents, but they do need to run reports. A supervisor would need an EAC login to run the reports. So it's just a one-time purchase on that one. All right, that's pretty much it for the slides. Let me close this off. And that way we can move ahead. All right. Okay, so next we're going to look at the one second here. Let me just drop down to the next point here. Okay, so if we look at, first thing I want to show you is the previous presentation that we've done on this. Excuse me again. Okay, we do have a the YouTube channel. Okay, for Epygi. And just if you go on YouTube, just search for Epygi, you'll see a lot of webinars that have been posted. The one I wanted to point out is this one here. It says Epygi Call Center Solution, the EAC ACD features. Okay, that's going to cover in more detail what I'm going to briefly touch on today, because we've already gone through all this previously. So I'm just going to maybe just gloss over a lot of it without going through all the details of this step-by-step configuration. Okay, whereas in this presentation today, I've already got the queues and agents configured. On the first presentation, we showed you a little bit more on how to configure those, as well as the, there's actually 5 parts to it. I've heard that there's a little bit of problem with the delay, and not sure what's causing that. We're going to look into that. I did run across that the other day. I just opened up 2 tabs and I just matched the audio of one tab to the video of the other one, and it worked for me like a charm. But I think you might be able to download it, and you probably won't have that problem. If you do have issues, just let me know, and you can send me an email. That's andy.white@epygi.com. All right. So let's look at the QX200. We're going to look at the login. There's also before I even go there, I also want to show you in the support portal, when you log in there, you should have access. And if you search for ACD, there's a ACD, AOC, and EAC user guide. Okay, so this is it's a real good document. It's going to show you how to all the things that we're going to be covering. It'll show you in more detail and explanation of some of the items that you see. So again, just click the terms of use and then download that document. So that's available. All right, so there's some of your resources. So let me log into the QX200. And we're going to go to extensions. And we're going to look at the ACD settings. Jump right into the ACD settings here, where I've previously configured a couple queues. If you need to add another queue, just click add, and then you specify the name of the queue and the queue extension. These queues are treated internally just like a regular extension. So once you can dial to that extension, you can transfer calls to that extension 600, 601. From the auto attendant, you can dial the 600, 601. So just keep that in mind. You're going to treat that just like any other extension in the system. All right, there is you can put a DID number directly on here with the SIP address field. So it's just like in any of the other extensions are handled. So if we look at the sales queue, if I click on the shield there, it's going to take me to the queue settings. Okay, there's your distribution types where you can ring all agents, round robin, longest idle, least busy during the last hour. You can do random hunting or skills-based routing. Okay, so this is how the calls will be distributed to reach the agents. This is how long the wait time in the queue. That's the number, sorry, not the wait time. That's the total number of calls that are going to be allowed to wait in the queue. So the 11th caller would overflow the queue and they wouldn't enter the queue there. This is the wait time in the queue, like is in seconds. So 300 seconds. After 300 seconds, you can redirect that caller elsewhere. All right, so that's about 5 minutes. There's your average serving time calculation period. So every, say, 60 seconds, you're going to calculate how fast those calls are going to be answered. And if you're going to play the position callers in the caller's position in the queue, and then whether or not you're going to play the estimated serving time. A lot of people don't like to play the estimated serving time because just a lot of ACD centers, those things aren't always accurate on the serving times, as you know. All right, and there's a callback option where you can call the customer back using the caller ID that the call came in on. This is the agent ring timeout. This is how long you're going to ring a particular agent before you move on to the next agent. Particularly important when you're using like a round robin. So it's not unusual for agents to get up and walk away from their desk and they forget to put themselves in some sort of an away state so their phone doesn't ring. Okay. So you have that option where if they are presented with a call and they don't answer it in that 15 seconds, you can put them in an away state. You can enable the queue wrap-up time so that when they get off, hang up from a call, they've got 10 seconds of wrap-up time before they're presented with another call. If the call is full, you can redirect that call to some other extension in the office or destination, and you can let the caller press 0 to be redirected elsewhere. And then you've got your custom prompts. You can present the caller with many different prompts, friendly, give them some comfort level that the their call will be answered at some point in time, even if it's a long hold time. So I've got a welcome message, and then after that, they're going to play the position in queue. That will be a prompt by itself. And then they're going to play another greeting. So I just got the two greetings in there. And in between those greetings, it'll play the background music. And for the background music, you specify the file here. Okay, so that's basic queue setup. And then you're going to configure configure your agents. So you go to ACD, click on agents, and you can configure as many agents as needed. Okay, if I do an edit on one of these agents, we'll take a look at some of the field names. All right, so the agent name, you just give the name Andy, what their status is going to be, if you want to make them online or not, and if this agent's going to be an admin, and if they can receive multiple calls from different queues. The web authentication is going to be what they're using to log into the EAC application. Okay, and so you give it maybe their name and then a password, a simple password. This is if the user is authenticating with their phone, which you probably won't need, but then you can give them when they go to receive a call, this is the extension that they're going to be receiving the calls to. All right, and then you have two wrap-up times. One is for receiving direct inbound calls. So if somebody calls from another extension to the agent's extension, that would be a direct inbound call. And there's a direct outbound call where the agent places an outbound call, maybe to an external customer or to some other extension in the office. Once they hang up that call, there's a wrap-up time that can be applied. So that's the agents. You create as many of those as you need. Then you go back to your queues, and then you assign those agents within to that queue. So you just add, and it will give you the drop down of all the agents that you've created, and you can just add them to this queue. All right, and you can specify whether they're a queue supervisor within that queue or not. All right, back to ACD. Let's look at some of the other settings here. Okay, you can create status codes. These are going to be when the agent steps away from their desk. This will be this state that the agent they'll put themselves in, whether it's on and you could create all these. It's whatever is meaningful and important to the customer. Typically, the agent's going to be on a break. The agents, a lot of call centers, they're accountable for their time from the time that they get there to the time that they leave. They have to be accountable for all their time. So if they're going to be away from their desk and not answering the phones, they got to be in some sort of state. So you create those states that are that they'll be using. For example, like break, supervisor help, meeting, training room, special projects. I could see lunch maybe being one. So you can add those codes. Wrap-up code, as the caller finishes up a call, they can enter a code to that particular call, a wrap-up code. The customer paid the invoice or payment pending, customer not interested, they canceled service, follow-up needed, etc. Skills-based routing, if you're routing the calls to agents based on their skills. EAC status, so this might be important. Let's say if an agent, they're at one desk and then they go to move to another desk, they forgot to log out of the desk that they just left, for example, you can come in here and force them out as an administrator. And then the database itself can be backed up. There's a way of doing a backup, and you can automate that backup and even have a backup history. Okay, and lastly, there's the AOC, which we're going to come back to. All right. So let's take a look at, we're going to log into the EAC. So this is a drop-down. It's actually a drop-down that I'm not going to lose this spot, but or this tab. But if you, the main login page of the QX, you'll see at the top right-hand corner, there's applications for the EAC console and the AOC, automatic outbound calling. I did want to look at real quickly. Just wanted to, while I'm in at the QX200 here, just wanted to show you the licensing. Okay, if we go to setup, license features. Okay, and here we have um, the basic ACD. It's activated, and then we have the EAC, the Epygi ACD console, and that's activated for 8 users, so I can have 8 simultaneous agents logged in. And then this is the second one. The one just below it is the Epygi AOC, automatic outbound calling, where I've got a license to allow 8 what we call users, but basically that's 8 simultaneous calls can be made from the campaign outbound. Okay, so that's the licensing part of it. Okay, let's what I started to do a moment ago. Let's log into the EAC. So if you've so I've already gone to the EAC, the drop-down applications page, and you can see the URL. You can just people can bookmark that. You can also give this a DNS name locally within the network, so that's something more friendly that they can the agents can log into. All right, so they put in their name, their password. Okay, so I'm logged in, agent Andy. I'm currently offline at the very top. I need to change my state. I want to be online, so I'm able to receive calls. The other states, you can be in an away state. You can be in do not disturb. I can be offline. And then all those codes that we added previously, those are all and you'll notice that the color will change according to the state that I'm currently in. So let's put ourselves online. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and initiate a phone call. That's something else I was going to show. Was logged into the QX200. If I go to telephony, call routing, in my call routing table, I do have a DID assigned in my call routing table, and I delete all. This DID is in what we call the EIN format with a +1 in front of it. I need to delete all 12 characters, including the plus sign and digits and characters. And once I delete all the digits, I'm going to send a call to extension 600 in the PBX. You notice I also put a time frame around this call routing entry. So this entry is only valid Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. After that time frame, it's going to use the next matching entry where the calls will go to the auto tenant. So instead of reaching the call queue 600 for the sales queue, it'll go directly to the auto tenant after 5 p.m. All right, so let's go ahead and I'm going to dial. I've got a phone here, and I'm going to be. Okay, so of course I'm going to get feedback. Take the phone off hook. So you can see the incoming call was to the extension 100, and it shows me that the call time in progress at this point, even from this EAC application. I can end the call from here. I can transfer the call to another destination from here. And of course, it shows the state has changed to show that the caller, this agent, is on a call. We'll go ahead and hang up that call. So you can initiate a call from here as also. We'll call to the main number. As soon as you press dial, the phone rings. And then once I answer it, then it makes an outbound call to the destination. So you can place the outbound calls also. What I do want to show is our new dashboard. I say new, we've had it probably most of the year. Beginning of the year it was introduced. Okay, so you get the sales, two queues being presented here. You got the sales queue and the support queue. And this is the time frame is for today. It shows how many agents. We'll go through each one of these just briefly. How many agents are ready? How many are online? How many agents are busy? That would be on a call. Auxiliary would be they're busy on a call, but maybe in a different queue other than the sales queue. You've got how many calls are queued up, how many active calls there are. So let's see what those look like after when I start making, when I make a call. Okay, we got a call queued up. If I answer the call, and so now we've got one active call. Okay, for the day, this is for this time frame that we're looking at, which is today. The longest call waiting time was 1 minute and 16 seconds. We've answered 11 calls. The average speed of answer is 10 seconds. The average call duration was short at only 9 seconds, of course. I've had 7 abandoned calls. How many calls were waiting? The average wait time in our queue was only 33 seconds. And we received 18 calls. So of the 18 calls, 11 were answered, 7 abandoned. And then this was new. This was added. This was a target time. So the calls answered within our target time. What is the target time? So we have to go to the settings for that. Let's look at a couple of the dashboard settings. So first of all, you've got the dashboard settings. It'll show you which queues you want to look at and which options or which parameters that you're going to be viewing. You can choose which ones you want to see. Let's go to the general settings, the report settings. The duration will be in seconds, or the format's going to be in hours, minutes, and seconds. You can have it either way. The agents, just some other settings while we're here. The agents can put themselves, when they go to offline or log out, it'll automatically go to offline state. Or if they close their browser, show the agents menu only for administrators and supervisors. Same with the agent status time. This is the marquee that's going across. This is the banner at the top. You can change that. And for the queue, the general settings, how often you're going to reload. Some of those settings are static. They're not updated in real time. So you can set the duration of when those are going to refresh. The time frame that's going to be showed on the dashboard. And then the target time. Okay, this is what we're shooting for. Okay, this is like within 15 I believe that's in 15 seconds, is it? Have to look at the document. So this is call answered with the target time during the specified time frame. So we've answered 9 calls within that target time of the 15 seconds. Okay, and actually I got the document right here. Let's take a look at that while we have that. Okay, I think that's in seconds. Okay, this is the grade of service, which means of the calls answered in the target time to the calls received during that specified time frame. So it's a percentage. So of all the calls answered, how many of them? So we had 18. That's pretty easy math, right? We had 18 calls come in. 9 of them were answered in the target frame. So 50% of the calls were answered in that target time. Okay, and then the service level. Okay, this is the calls answered in the target time to the calls answered during the specified time frame. So basically, of the total percentage of calls, which was 9, let's see, total that were answered, to the total calls during that specified time frame that were answered. So 9 of 11 calls were answered in that target frame. So that put us at the service level of 81, almost 82%. And then the next one is if you put your mouse just over the top of it, usually should. These are the abandoned calls. Calls abandoned. The total calls abandoned to the total calls received during that time frame. So we only had 7 abandoned calls out of 18 received. So we had 38% were abandoned. Okay, and you can resize. And once these will resize according to your screen. So a lot of people will have this on their maybe an actual dashboard, maybe a big monitor, so everybody can see how they're doing, how the call center is doing on answering their calls. Okay, I still have a call in progress there. All right, so we can take a look at this. This is another option that was added. This is the queue panel. So this shows all the agents, and I've seen this completely full with over 100 agents. That's some busy call centers that we have, and you can choose, like this is you can choose which queues. So at the top you've got a slide option there where you can choose which queues you're going to be viewing. So let's say we're just going to look at the sales queue. There's only 3 agents in the sales queue. One of them is talking right now, and it shows how long they've been in that talking state. So let's say if I hang up this call, it'll change back to green. If I put myself in like an away state, so you got the indicator on the left, it'll show the away state. If I'm on break, it'll show blue. And then if you look at the question mark, far right-hand side, there's a question mark. Basically for the help, it'll show all the different statuses and states that you might see. Okay, so that's real helpful, so that the the supervisor can see who's on the phone for for a long duration or whatever, and see all the different agents and how long they've been in the different states. All right, so you get the queues. This is the direct inbound queue. Again, this is for calls that are received directly to this agent from another extension or direct to from a customer. Direct outbound is where, because keep in mind the agent is accountable for all their time. So the supervisor might come over to the agent and say, hey, you haven't been on the phone very much today. And, the agent will be like, yeah, I have. I've been talking to other, made a lot of outbound calls directly to these customers. So all that time should be reflected so they don't get those types of questions from their supervisors. So that's all got to be accounted for. So that goes into the direct outbound calls and the direct inbound calls. Okay, so you got the here's the sales queue extension 600. I looking at it. This is I'm logged in. Look at this. I'm a supervisor. There's 2 agents online. How many calls are queued up? Of course, this is going to change in real time. Okay, we'll answer another call. If I click on this queue, okay, it brings us to some more fancy charts and displays here. It shows this is the queue summary. 1 active call. It shows the wait time in queue. Just a different, kind of similar but a little different display that's on the main dashboard. The calls answered. Shows all the different time frames, how much time there, talk time, etc. The abandoned calls. The wait time in queue before the call was abandoned, how many calls were rejected, which are overflow or timeout, where they sat there for the whole 10 minutes or whatever it was and never got answered, so that would be a timeout. And then we have if customers did request a callback, it'll show how many calls are in the callback requested calls were made. And you can change these. These are there's several canned reports, timeframes up here, but you can also do a custom range. Okay, so there's your again, we're just looking at the sales queue. You can see all the agents in the sales queue. 1 agent, Andy, is still on a call. And the supervisor can change the status of any of these agents from right here from their EAC screen. So if you need to put an agent into a different state because maybe they need to be in a meeting after they get done with that call, you can change their state. And then you can toggle whether or not that agent is available within this queue or not. So you can very easily move agents around as, let's say, at the slower parts of the day. If you don't need as many agents in one queue, you can take them out of the queue and maybe add them back into a different queue or something. At this, just to very easily just clicking on that button, it'll take them out of the queue. And the supervisor has that can have that control. So we look at the live calls. You can see this call's been answered and the time, the duration. He was only in the queue for 6 seconds. You can click on the end call. Let's see, call summary. Shows all the calls for, of course, Andy has been the agent that's been busiest. 9 calls, Mario answered 3 of them. Average call duration, you can see that. Call details. All right, so this is, let me hang up this call. All right, so the call duration, so it shows over here the call type, whether it was incoming or outgoing. It's also going to show the time frame, the originator's caller ID, call duration, closed by the outside caller. If this call was recorded, you can click on this and play back the recording right there. You can put in a wrap-up code from this page, so you can set the wrap-up code. The customer paid their invoice, and then that wrap-up code would be reflected on the the CDR report. You can add a comment. maybe down here, maybe paid whatever, $100. Oops, typo. Okay, well, that typo is going to go into the report. All right, so you can add the comments, whatever it might be important, and that will get added to the CDR record for the call center. And you can change your time frames on these calls. Then there's the wrap-up codes. You can see how they've been, a summary, just basically how they've been used, how many of them. So if that's important for the agents to do that and calculate those, you can see how they're being used. I think it'll even show you some pie charts on how they're being used. Okay, so let me go back to the queues. So you get the cold call queue. This is going to be the for the automatic outbound calling. All right, so here are your wrap-up codes. You can see how many of those were used and to which you can assign those wrap-up codes to certain, where they're only available to certain queues. So when you create those wrap-up codes, you can specify, for example, like canceled service, it's available on all queues, whereas payment pending is only available in the sales queue. So you can see that. If I look at agents, this will show all the agents, just a snapshot of all agents. You can chat with the agents. You can call to the agent right from here. The extension shows all the other extensions as well as the agents. So you can place calls to them. Here's the contacts. This would be, you can upload a contacts in the QX, like a phone book. So maybe this is your vendor list or common customer contact list. So you can save some keystrokes and you just click on that call to place an outbound call to it. Or place, just click on that link and it will place a call to it. All right. If you're doing chat, this is where you can have different chat sessions, and you can create a chat and type your message. Whatever. How are you? So you can send a message, and then you can keep, just like you do normally. You can have all different chat sessions over here on the right. You can recall each of those. And then you've got reporting. I'm not going to go through all these reports. We did look at some of those on the previous webinar that we did. We've also added some additional reports to the list since we've first did the original webinar. This agent tracing report, this one's kind of cool. So let's take a look at this one. So so you click on the, it's a trace report of the agent. It's going to show all the activity of a particular agent, let's say, and you can specify which queue. You could say all. If you don't specify anything, it'll get in all queues. And you can even specify which agent. Let's just get the one for Andy and run the report. All right, it's going to create a CSV file. Okay, I think it's already available. We'll open it. It will open in Excel. That's CSV, separated value. By default, it's going to open with an Excel spreadsheet. So let me slide that in here. All right, just took a quick water break there. So you got your reports. Let me click on this so I can expand all the tabs. There we go. So the agent, and it shows, when they're online. It shows the duration that they were in that particular state. Let's look at the more recent. So again, this is for the duration of the day. I was making some of these test calls last night. Some of the more recent activity. So the call was ringing. Ringing came in 4 seconds on a support queue and sales queue. This is the last call that was answered. Shows me the caller ID of the number that was calling in. It came in from the sales queue. How long the duration? 196 seconds. And I added the comment, the paid invoice, or wrap-up code, I should say. And then at that point, I went to the idle state. So it shows the activity of the agent all throughout the day. So if they need to be accountable, you could see the outbound calls that were made. From that agent. Okay, I'm not going to look at all those queues or reports, I should say. You can come back and look at those more detail, but there's many reports that are available. So right now we want to look at the AOC, automatic outbound calling. So this is something I haven't, oops, got the wrong password here. Excuse me. Okay, so we got the, we go to extensions. Again, instead of ACD, we're going to look at AOC, automatic outbound calling. So you've got, I created a queue. Cold calls is what I named it. It's extension 605. And I've got 2 agents in there. I created those agents just like I did previously in the other tab. Added them in this queue. If you look at this queue, it's just the same as the settings on the other queue that we created. Now, the only thing, you don't get to set the agent distribution type because it's going to be all agent ringing. Okay, it's the only option on this. And you can specify the agent ring timeout, etc. You can put in your the prompts that are going to be heard when the caller. This is when the caller enters the queue. They're going to be sitting in this particular queue waiting to be answered. Okay, so the call goes out. This is outbound, so the call goes out to the party, the called party. They answer, and they're going to be They're going to be sitting in a queue, and this is the AOC queue. But it's a high priority queue, which means they're going to be answered by the first available agent. So while they're in that queue, they're going to hear, background music or whatever you wanted to play to that caller. So let's take a look at the other settings. So if we go to AOC, there's AOC users. These are the users that you're going to create that are going to be logged in, and they're going to create and manage the outbound calling campaign. So I've got this one user. And then the AOC status, if they were logged in, you would be able to see them. So there's not that much to setting this up. It's pretty much the same as ACD. But let's look at the settings. So this is the drop down. I put in my name, password. All right, so this is a campaign. It shows me that this is the dashboard. What you first see when you log into it. Let's go look at the campaign first. So you can add a new campaign. The campaign name, we've created 2 of them here, February 6th, another one, campaign. The second campaign was December 15th. cold calls. All right, and when the call comes in, it's going to be in queue. I've only got the one AOC queue, 605. Calls will be transferred to that extension 605. How many targets? How many concurrent calls? Remember that the licensing is based on the number of concurrent calls and whether or not this campaign is active or not. I'm gonna go. Should I look at this one or the other one? Targets. Yeah, let's look at this campaign for February 6th. So when you go to configure your campaign, so you give it the campaign name, which you already did on the first page. This one's called February 6th. The calls will be transferred to the queue 605, and then you specify how many concurrent calls. I can go up to 8 because that's what I'm licensed for. And then you can modify the campaign here once you change your settings. So the target list, this is going to be the list of the callers that we're going to be calling today. So you just browse to the file that has all your contacts in it. Okay, and you're going to you'll create that ahead of time on an Excel spreadsheet using the CSV format. And yes, there is a specific format for that. We'll look at that in a moment. Actually, I can go ahead and open it now. Probably be a good time. Let's see. There it is. I've got it open. Let me just move that over here. So this would be an example of your contact list. We'll call it the campaign list. When you create this list, and that document will specify, it'll tell you that these headers, they have to be exactly like it's labeled up here. Whether or not you're using these columns or not, the headers have to be there on row number 1. Call name, phone number, allow call, retry timeout, and max attempts. If you don't give the exact name like it is, it won't load. All right, then you've got of course, their name, the number. If you're allowing to call this person, retry timeout, like how many times you're gonna you wait before you try again, and how many attempts. This would be 5 attempts. So once you've created that list, then you can upload it here. And this greeting is what they're going to hear when the called party answers the phone. So you say, this is this is Epygi calling to check on you, see how you're doing or whatever, or to follow up with you. And please hold on for the next available agent. So whatever they're going to hear, something short, something that they're not going to hang up on you, to try to pique their interest. So here's your targets. So once you import the list, you've got all your targets, what we call targets. These are your contacts. All right, there were quite a few on this one. There was 1,000 contacts. You can specify how many are going to be shown on every page, 100 per page, 11 pages. All right, so right here I can add a new target to this list. I can once I modify this list, I can delete entries over here on the far right. I can delete them. I can change the order, because right now they're going to be called in the order that they're presented here. Okay, contact number 1. You can sort these at the top by name, let's say, or by phone number. You can sort all these. Allow whether or not you're going to allow to call this contact, the retry, the timeout, how long you're going to wait before you call again, how many attempts. and you can change the order, so you can maybe move it to a particular position in this in the list. All right. Um, so that's it. So once you've created this list, you've modified it. Maybe you're just wanted to see it here, what it looked like. You changed it. You can export this list. So you can create another Excel spreadsheet with this particular list. All right, so let's say if I exported this list, let's just see what it looks like. And you'll see it's just like the list that we were showing earlier. Okay. And that is not a caller. That is a call coming in. All right, so let's close that list. So now you know how to create the list, upload it. If I click on then the configuration of the campaign. So now if I go to dashboard, I can start making calls to that list. Okay, and so this page will show me the summary of the activity that's going on, how many calls are made for this time frame, how many drop calls we had, failed calls, waiting, how many calls were waiting, active calls, average wait time, the maximum wait time, average call duration, and that was the average duration of the call starting from when they connected to the agent until it's closed. So when they actually get connected to the agent, and then how long the agent speaks with them, that's the call duration, maximum and minimum call time with the agent. So if I specify start, you can see the outbound call goes out and my phone is ringing. I've got some inbound calls coming in. I'll answer. Okay. So I'm going to hang up that call. All right. So right away another call comes in. All right, and it's presented to the agent. So we've got a call that's active, and so it's going to continue to make those calls. I've got only have two agents available, so it paused. Okay, so now it's got another call coming in, and it will continue to make those calls until I pause it. And now if we go look at our targets, I know it's kind of hard to, from your end to see what's actually happening, but, basically got incoming calls being presented. They're going out and coming back into me. Let me, actually, did I change that? I don't think I changed that. Let's see, on my telephony, call routing. Yeah, this incoming call, it needs to go to, all right, it's going to go to 102. Enable that entry. Okay, so the inbound calls, were going, calling to that number, but they were going into another call center, which was 600. I don't want that. I want them to go to ring this other phone, 102 on all calls. Okay, so if we look at the campaign, it's calling out to this 972-366-0099. And then when it gets presented. When the call gets answered, it's going to go connect to the agent that's available. Let's see the next call. Let's resume. So you can see actively the call being presented. It's calling to this extension 102. I answer the call. My agent is answering, or ringing, I should say. And once the agent answered, now I'm connected to that caller. Okay, so now we got an answered call connected to the agent. And the next one's coming in. Okay. I'm going to pause this. Okay, so you can see what the activity that's going on. You can see your attempts, how many call attempts were made. These are your results of your calls. And of course, you want to be able to see which ones you've called, which ones you can remove from the list. So you've got a new spreadsheet here. So you're going to export your results. So you export the session. And of course, it's going to open in a new spreadsheet. And you can see the activity. Okay, so here's all the list of all your calls, the numbers that were called, whether or not that call, this one got dropped, this one was closed by the user. The call duration, how many attempts that were made. And then, of course, here's all the other calls that we didn't get a chance to call. All right, so that's pretty much it for the automatic outbound calling. I'm going to stop that. So it's pretty easy to configure. You can see the activity. You can see what the calls are doing in real time. You can create different campaigns. You can specify which campaigns are going to be active. So used in combination with your inbound call center, the outbound calling can be real useful and obviously beneficial to a lot of customers. I don't know how many of your customers are requesting it, but don't be afraid to test it out, use it, and I think it would be a good tool for many of your customers. All right, that's going to conclude the session. I'm going to stop the recording here.